welcome to the Candidate Forum put on by the League of Women Voters of Arlington Heights. My name is Madeline O'Dell, and I am from the League of Women Voters. I am an emerging leader. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that neither supports nor opposes candidates or parties for any office. The League's purpose is to promote political responsibility through the informed and active participation of citizens in government. Providing this forum allows citizens to become better informed about the issues facing their community and to become better acquainted with the candidates running for office. We are happy to provide this service for our community. To submit questions to the candidates, please text 224-306-9521. Once again, that's 224-306-9521, or email voter.lwvah@gmail.com. That is voter.lwvah@gmail.com. I'd like to introduce our moderator for today's event, Catherine O'Dell.
Hello, and thank you. We will now start our candidate forum. We ask that you please bear with us and note that technology can be tricky sometimes, and just know that we're all doing our best to ensure that this runs as smoothly as possible. With me today, we have our candidates, our ASL interpreter, and our timer. I would like to note that the Q&A chat has been disabled for all attendees, so if you would like to submit a question for the candidates, please refer to the chat where we also have the information about regarding sending a question. Again, that is voter.lwvah@gmail.com or text 224-306-9521. We will start this forum today with candidate Edly-Allen, candidate for Illinois representative in the 51st District. The candidates have agreed to abide by the rules set forth prior to this forum. They will each present a 2-minute introductory statement. The order was determined by coin toss before the Zoom. The candidate who opens first will be the last to respond in closing. Then, questions obtained by the audience will be asked, and each candidate will have 1 minute to respond in alternating order. Closing statements will be 2 minutes. League of Women Voter members will keep time, and candidates, I will ask that you please adhere to the time limits. Candidates, please notice the timers. When you see the stop sign, you may finish your sentence. Okay, so here we go. We will have candidate Edly-Allen open with our first question. This question is in regards to gun safety and gun violence prevention. So this was asked.
I'm sorry, do we do our opening statements first?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes.
That's okay.
You may begin with your opening statement.
Okay. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
that was
I feel like it would be bad manners to not at least say thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this event. And the small little known fact probably that the League of Women Voters was actually founded right here in Illinois in 1920, which I think is really important, that we've always been on the cutting edge here in Illinois and moving our state forward. And that mission of voters playing a critical role in our democracy aligns exactly with who I was as a teacher. I think it's really important that people recognize that democracy is a verb, it's an action word. And the fact that we're doing this today, that people can be watching live and that we'll be able to watch it remotely at a later date is really awesome. I would also like to acknowledge the heavy grief that we are all sharing today as we mourn the loss of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She was a hero of mine, and she fought for equality for all Americans. Serving as the state representative has been just a natural progression for me in serving. My heart has always been about service, from being PTO president of my children's school to being on the board of directors for Illinois Science Olympiad, to being director of Vacation Bible School and creating an education foundation. I've always been in that place of service. And it's been my honor and privilege to serve as the state representative for District 51. I hope that my constituents see that my example of being an independent voice, a voice of reason, and working across the aisle in a bipartisan way has made them also proud. So thank you for this opportunity to share how we are the important issues that face us today. Thanks.
Thank you. Candidate Voss.
Yeah, thank you to the League of Women Voters and Madeline. The inspiration of seeing our youth get active and involved in things like this is amazing. So keep up the great work with that, and I'm sure there's great big things ahead for you in the near future and in the distant future as well. I'm running because I love our communities. It's heartbreaking to me when I listen to the plans of many of my friends and neighbors and business owners who say they can't stay here any longer, where when their kids get to a certain age, they're done with high school or they hit that college point, that they're out of the state. The increasing taxes, the unquenchable appetite from out of Springfield for more of our money, the system of corruption that benefits the few but robs the many is driving our incredible families and incredible businesses out of this state. Like Mary, I've always had a heart to serve. I was coaching soccer and t-ball before I even had kids. I was working with PTOs and other community organizations and nonprofits ever since I was your age, Madeline. I've served in some of the poorest communities in the world, in Haiti and India. I'm serving now with an organization that operates the only safe house in the state of Illinois for minors rescued from sex trafficking. And I want to continue my life and heart of service by putting our communities and putting your families first, putting politics and partisanship aside, and doing what we can to keep our families and those businesses here in the 51st and keeping the 51st district the beacon of hope that it has been for the rest of the state.
Thank you very much. So now we will begin with our questions. I apologize for the mistake earlier. So this question is in regards to gun safety and gun violence prevention. Because candidate Edly-Allen answered first, we will have candidate Boss. You will answer this question. In order to keep guns out of the hands of felons and others who have been deemed to not lawfully possess a firearm, what is your opinion on Fix the FOID bill that has been passed by the Illinois House and is now awaiting passage in the Illinois Senate?
Sure. Well, first, we have some of the strictest gun laws in the country right now. One of the biggest challenges and the problems that we have that we need to fix is the fact that the monies that are supposed to be used from the revenues of FOID cards from CCLs, the $30 million over these past few years that is supposed to be used for Illinois State Police staffing to help process background checks, to be able to consistently identify those who should or shouldn't be possessing a firearm. That money's been swept away and used in the General Assembly. And again, not using the funds that were designated for these background checks, for keeping our communities safe, had been swept away and stolen by the General Assembly. So the first thing that we have to do is keep that money where it's supposed to be so the laws can work the way that they were designed to work.
Thank you. Candidate Edly-Allen?
I actually did vote for Fix the FOID. I have been endorsed by two common sense gun lobby groups, Moms Demand Action, that has modeled their program after Mothers Against Drunk Driving, where we didn't take alcohol away from people. We just wanted them to be safe with their alcohol. Moms Demand Action also models after that. They don't want anyone's gun. I'm a supporter of the Second Amendment. We just want people to be safe with their firearms. I've also been endorsed by Gabby Gifford's Common Sense Gun Violence Prevention. I do believe one of the issues that actually propelled me into the race was after the Parkland shooting and the youth that appealed to the adults and said, please do more to keep us safe. We owe it to our children and our schools to keep our youth safe while they're getting their education.
Thank you. Our next question will be regarding taxes. Candidate Edly-Allen, you'll answer first here. How can a state representative influence property taxes, especially in regards to school funding?
Property taxes is one of the one of the biggest issues I hear when I talk to constituents. And as we know, we all love our strong schools, and 80% of our tax bill is for our school funding. I personally moved to this area for the strong schools. And an area that I would really like to investigate is our TIF. We have tax deferred areas right here in my district, we have 11 of them where the property taxes are frozen, and that's a loss of revenue that could be going into our school coffers to lessen the burden on our homeowners. I actually have a school district that's suing its village because it's trying to put up a TIF. We need to tighten up the language. We need to make these advisory boards have teeth and make sure that they have voting power so that all of our community entities are working together as a net rather than in different silos.
Thank you, Candidate Boss.
Yeah, I agree. One of the biggest reasons that people move into our area in the 51st is the incredible schools, and you know, they leave Chicago or Cook County, they move into our area for the incredible schools, and then when their kids get out of school age, they find their way back out of the state. And so it's definitely something that we need to address. One of the biggest sources or problems, there's two. I think we need to consolidate the units of government that we have. We have more units of government than any other state, second only to Texas. That racks up our property taxes. If we had more funding going into the schools instead of into all of those line items in those property taxes, we would be way better off. And the second with that is we have to have pension reform. About 20% of everything that the state takes in goes straight into the pensions. So without pension reform and without some consolidation of those units of government, it's going to be a challenge to move forward, but we can do it.
Thank you. Our next question is in regards to women's rights. Candidate Boss, you will answer first. With the recent loss of Justice Ginsburg, some women fear an erosion in women's rights. What will you do to uphold the rights of women in all aspects of life, not just reproductive rights?
Well, on a state level, you know, I believe that everyone is created equal. That God made everyone equal in that regards. I have two beautiful daughters. I have an amazing wife. I fight daily for girls who are victimized by child sexual exploitation and who are sex trafficked around the U.S. They need and deserve hope for a future. They need and deserve love and respect to know that what was behind them is behind them, and what can be set before them is set before them. This isn't about, you know, a specific gender. This is about equality for all and moving all of us together forward in our communities.
Thank you. Candidate Edly-Allen.
This question really hits at the heart of me being a woman. And I was proud to sponsor the Reproductive Health Care Act that did pass out of the legislature, knowing that reproductive health care and just women's health in general was under siege at the federal level. So women can rest assured that here in Illinois, their decisions about their own health belongs to them and their physician and no one else, not the government. We say that we trust women. Another area that we are looking into at the Women's Caucus is doulas and midwives, that the infant mortality rate is extremely high, especially in women of color, and we really want to focus on that prenatal and care prior to someone giving birth to their child.
Thank you. Our next question is in regards to criminal justice. People with records face many barriers when they return to society, and a chief barrier is finding housing. In many cases, they are barred from public housing. Would you support the Public Housing Access Bill, which eases the restrictions currently imposed on those returning to society?
I don't know the full details of all of the bill, but absolutely would support moving, you know, anything forward to be able to help those who have made mistakes, who have paid their debt to society, who are trying to advance and move their lives forward. Anything that we can do to try to help make that happen. Those who want to benefit society, those who want to do good, those who want to turn away from whatever life it was, whatever danger that they were in, whatever troubles that they had in their past, to move forward, to become productive members of society, to build great, strong communities. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Can you repeat the question again?
Yes, of course. People with records face many barriers when they return to society, and one of those main barriers is finding housing. In many cases, they are barred from public housing. Would you support the Public Housing Access Bill, which eases the restrictions currently imposed on those returning to society?
Okay, you're speaking directly about public housing, and I have had people in my office discussing this this bill, and I do believe that we have to decide as a community, when is enough enough? When is enough years of someone who has paid the consequence and then wants to move on with their life? Having these checks against them prevents them from moving forward. I also would like to look at recidivism. Our state will spend over $5 billion on incarceration. I hosted a movie pre-COVID on Stateville Calling, looking at probation and parole, and giving parole to non-violent offenders, and getting people out of prison and into our communities as taxpayers and community members that are part of our society rather than in jail. Our whole system needs to really be looked at as far as incarceration and when we do get out. I'm a member of the Coalition to Reduce Recidivism out of Waukegan, always looking for innovative ways to support our community members.
Thank you. Our next question is in regards to COVID. If and when a working COVID vaccine is available, would you support or oppose legislation requiring a vaccination as a condition of employment or attending in-person school? Why or why not?
I believe I go first, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
you do.
You know, this is a really interesting question. And unfortunately, at this point, we have politicized medicine and science, and it's a very difficult time to believe in what we actually are experiencing when our CDC is under siege and you know, medical professionals are being questioned. We would have to have all stakeholders at the table to have a discussion about this. I believe that, you know, mandating the masks and social distancing and requiring the different things that, you know, taking your temperature, those are all proactive things that we can do to prevent the spread. So until we have all the scientific data that's brought to the table, I would like to see that first before we go as aggressive as requiring everyone to be part of the vaccine.
Thank you. Candidate Boss.
Yeah, with the number of questions out there regarding, you know, the data and science behind whatever vaccine may or may not come, I think it's premature to be able to weigh in on, you know, the requirement of that until more is known about the effectiveness, the, you know, ingredients, and, you know, everything that goes into creating, producing, and distributing this supposed vaccine to be able to have that conversation. I think, you know, a lot of our area businesses are doing all that they can right now, you know, requiring the mask, wearing the gloves, putting up dividers, doing what they can to safely keep their employees and those who enter their business as safe as possible in the midst of everything that we're experiencing right now. But I would like to see more concrete data on that before we make any firm decisions.
Thank you. Our next question is in regards to LGBT rights. So what is your position on transgender children in schools using gender-designated facilities? Candidate Bossier.
Yep, sorry, I was unmuting there.
No worries.
You know, it is a challenge of those who are struggling with their identity and whatever that may be or not be, and those who aren't, those who are struggling with accepting those who are struggling with their identities as well, and the families that surround that. It's a tension to manage, and I think that there are solutions that we can come up with that would make everybody feel calm, comfortable, and accepted. The challenge with that is going to be, you know, do we have adequate space in our schools to allow that? Do we need to add additional spaces for additional groups? Do we just go straight to individual changing in bathrooms for everybody in that? There's challenges that we need to face in that, but I think as communities that we can come together and create positive solutions that move everyone forward.
Thank you. Candidate Edly-Allen.
I am a proud supporter of all LGBTQ, our community. One of the first bills that I heard in the Education Committee was about LGBTQ history and providing that in our curriculum. I think it's really, really important that we bring all of our community members out in the open and have these candid and honest, open discussions. We are all humans to begin with, and we all need to be treated that way. I disagree that it's a challenge. It just needs to be done. This is a human right, and all of our community members have the right to be safe and to feel as a member of our community.
Thank you. Our next question is in regards to healthcare. Would you support creating a prescription drug affordability board in Illinois?
Actually, I have done something similar to that. Yes, my short answer is yes. The longer answer is I was a proud supporter of a bill that put a cap on insulin prices. We really do need to take a strong look at pharmaceuticals in general. It is an area that it's affected more at the federal level, but there are some small things that we can do at the state level. I would like to continue this conversation. The pharmaceutical companies are a very strong lobby, and we need to do what's best for the consumer. Medical needs, it's one of the basic needs of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I believe that all medicines, especially the life-saving and life-threatening types of medicines, should be accessible, available, and affordable. And I believe we need to have a discussion about putting caps on all types of different medications.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, as far as the board's concerned, I'm all for boards and groups and people coming together as long as it leads to something. We have way too many groups and boards here in Illinois, referendums on property tax reform and et cetera. They get together, they talk, and then there's no results that come out at the end of that. And they pat themselves on the back and say, look, we did something, we met. So having a group that's going to meet together to actually do something substantial, I'd be all for. I know that I have plenty of friends that are diabetic, and the insulin pricing that they have to deal with is robbery. You know, I have friends that deal with mental health issues, and the medicines that they need to get are sometimes not affordable for them. So affordable healthcare is definitely something that from what we can do as a state, we need to look in doing. A lot of it's a federal issue, but I'd be all on board for whatever we can do as a state.
Thank you. Our next question is in regards to redistricting. Do you support prison gerrymandering reform, which requires the Secretary of State to prepare redistricting data to reflect the incarcerated people at their last residential address rather than the address of the facility in which the person is incarcerated? Why or why not?
I support all redistricting based upon population alone, nonpartisan, get the politics out of it, get the parties out of it, nonpartisan redistricting that creates fair maps for our communities, that says the voters get to choose who their electors are, not electors getting to choose who their voters are. It is one of the top priorities of what I want to run on and what I want to do. It is one of the top things that will lead to fundamental change in this state when we have fairly drawn maps instead of these gerrymandered squiggly lines that include some people and don't include other people, so that a party can choose who their candidate is. This is what will lead to substantial change in our state.
Thank you. Candidate Edly-Allen.
Not only do I support the idea of fair maps, I was part of a group of bipartisan legislators that came out pre-COVID on our ideas on how to present, the fair maps. We need to have bipartisan working groups to come up with a way to stop the gerrymandering. It's not a fair representation of our communities. So I would be all in favor. Not only do I say it, I've done it. I've been part of the legislature that has brought this up into the public eye.
Thank you. Our next question is in regards to the environment and jobs. Do you support the Clean Energy Jobs Act?
That's me. Okay, I go first, right? Because
Oh,
I got last.
sorry,
Yeah.
I dropped that one. I'm sorry.
Yes, I actually have I am a supporter of the CEJA, and not only that, but I have received, my voting record was 100% by the Illinois Environmental Council. I've been endorsed by the Illinois Sierra Club because of my voting record and my being a champion of the environment. I believe protecting our air and water is paramount. It is, I serve on the environmental committee, and it is one of my top priorities. Unfortunately, the environment has become a very partisan issue. I serve on the committee, and when we have bills that come through about clean energy or about reducing fossil fuels, we get no votes, not even wanting to consider them. And that's really concerning for me, that this has become a political issue. Everyone has the right to breathe clean air and clean water, and we need to protect that.
Thank you, Candidate Boss.
I'll go now. Sorry about that, Mary.
No worries.
Yeah, we have one planet that we live in. You know, we have to do all that we can to take care of that. You know, growing up in West Michigan in a beach town in up the river, you know, when sewage from the bigger city would be dumped down the river and would destroy where I get to go swimming. It's a travesty. We need to do all we can to keep our planet clean and safe for generations and generations to come. As an Ely Township trustee, recently we voted to increase our green energy that with our energy supplier up to 25%, so that those residents in Ely Township that get that energy can have clean energy added into their energy portfolio, so to speak. There's plenty of innovation and things that we can do to move forward on this, that it's going to be beneficial for businesses, beneficial for our communities, and most of all, beneficial for the planet.
Thank you. Our next question is in regards to juvenile justice. Would you favor legislation of cases for emerging adults, so around ages 18 to 25 in juvenile court? At what age would you consider an offender fully an adult?
I'll go first. Yeah, I'm in any sense of criminal justice reform and juvenile reform is, I think, a worthy conversation, given that there's so many gray areas in the midst of those teenage years, where certainly some should not be paying for those challenges and mistakes for the rest of their life. If there's a magical age with that, I don't think there is. I think it's on a case-by-case basis and an individual basis. The goal shouldn't be, you know, what's the maximum persecution that we can enforce onto these offenders. The goal is, how do we help reform and lead these individuals to have a better future and a better life?
Thank you, Candidate Edly-Allen.
Just for clarification, whoever answers last is supposed to answer the next question, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to, all right. So the idea with juveniles is very closely aligned to how I was as a teacher. I don't support, well, there should be consequences for bad behavior. However, we need to be careful with the punitive part of this. I think we need to look deeper into children and the trauma that perhaps they have experienced, mental health. It's a very complex answer, and there isn't a short answer to how do we treat the juveniles. I would like to see us treating just all humans in a more humane way, and be more of a restorative after paying consequences than punitive. How long is long enough? What can we do to help people move from trauma situations and into citizens that are productive and eventually tax-paying citizens?
Thank you. Our next question is in regards to money in politics. The Illinois Senate established term limits for its leaders in 2017. Do you support term limits for the Speaker and the Minority Leader of the House? Candidate Edly-Allen, you'll go first.
Yes. That's my answer. I support term limits for leadership, absolutely. And not only that, but we're working on ethics reforms as we speak.
Thank you. Candidate Boss?
Absolutely, we need term limits for leadership in Illinois. When you look at the system of corruption that has been built by Madigan, when you look at the control that he has developed by creating these house rules, when you look at his ability to put candidates up and control the funds through the Illinois Democrat Party, we absolutely need term limits in that leadership position. I've called on Speaker Madigan to resign from his leadership position. I have publicly stated that I will not vote for Madigan to be Speaker of the House if I'm elected. He needs to go. Change needs to happen in this state, and the gateway to that is removing Madigan out of that leadership position.
Thank you. Our next question is in regard to taxes. If elected, will you take or have you taken the taxpayer-funded General Assembly pension?
If I'm elected, I will not take the taxpayer-funded General Assembly pension. It's horribly funded. It is not necessary. It is not needed for part-time legislators to be paid for and to be funded by taxpayers for the rest of our lives. I'm doing this out of an act of public service and do not need to be paid and supported by taxpayers through a pension for the rest of my life.
Thank you. Candidate Edly-Allen?
Yes, I do take the pension, and it's not as simple of an answer as we just heard. As a single mother raising two children that I still support, this is my full-time job. During these COVID times, I've been working 10 and 12-hour days on Saturdays and Sundays, getting the needs of my constituents met. This is not a part-time job. It is a full-time job. I was substitute teaching to supplement my salary, but because of COVID, that has had to stop. So we get paid $67,000 as it's my full-time job, which is well below the $84,000 Lake County average salary. So as a single person, it is extremely difficult. The pension is something that we do need to look at reforming it, but it is part of one of our benefits in serving the time in the legislature and as other state employees and teachers.
Thank you. Our next question is in regard to legislative decisions. How does the head of your party influence your legislative decisions?
The head of my party does not influence. I think the head of my party is Speaker Madigan. He does not influence my decisions. Not only does he not influence my decisions, I've had very many heated discussions with him about not supporting some of our platforms. For example, I voted against cannabis because after listening to my law enforcement, I was concerned that they did not have the tools that they needed in order to do testing in the field. And I know that that was a bill that was really important to my party, but I voted against it. So I have worked really hard to be an independent voice in my life as a woman and as a legislator, and no one will tell me what to do.
Thank you. Candidate Boss?
Now, I'm not running to represent a party. I'm running to represent people. I'm running to represent the families and the communities of the 51st District, and we'll vote every vote based upon what is best for them. Our party is in the minority, unlike Speaker Madigan, who has control of the House, who can dictate what bills are brought forth, when those bills are brought forth, and who's on committees, when they're on committees. That is a challenge. And again, it goes back to the term limits of leadership, and it goes back to not voting for Madigan to be Speaker of the House. I publicly said I will not do that. I'm waiting for my opponent to say publicly that she will not vote for Madigan to be Speaker of the House again. And that can lead to the change that we need to see in this state, where we can have bipartisan solutions, where we can have both parties coming together to make decision that is going to be best for our state and move this state forward.
Thank you. Our next question is going back to the environment. What specific environmental legislation do you support, Candidate Boss?
I don't know of any, specific things that are out there, to be able to call them out, by line or by name, but any things that we can do that are going to move our state and our community forward in bringing a balance of renewable energies into the communities. I think this ties into ethics reform as well. When you look at the bribes that ComEd was paying out for Madigan, for those jobs that are, all that's under investigation right now. Man, if ComEd had that same money to put into infrastructure reform, to put into clean energy development, to look into developing new technologies to be able to help the environment, to be able to create cleaner, safer energy for our communities, that would go a long way in saving our planet, saving our environment, and saving jobs.
Thank you. Candidate Edly-Allen?
I will support all bills or any legislation that will come through the Environmental Committee that will wean us off of fossil fuels and put more of a reliance on our renewable energies. I have done that. I will continue to do that. I had already stated that I have a 100% voting record on the environment. I would pivot just a little bit to other areas that would help with our environment, and a shout out to a group that I've been working with called Mindful Waste in Barrington, and with food literacy. And I believe that we have the reduce, reuse, recycle, and we need to get back to that beginning of the reducing of our consumption and teaching at a very early age how to reduce your consumption. How do we, where does our food come from? We have financial literacy, but we don't have food literacy. And a lot of my bills and ideas have been put on hold because of COVID, and I'm looking really forward to the next session to get some of this legislation put through.
Thank you. Our next question sent in is the following. If elected, will you vote for Michael Madigan to continue as Speaker of the House? Why or why not?
No, I will not vote for Speaker Madigan as Speaker of the House.
Thank you, Candidate Boss.
As I've stated before, no, I will not vote for Madigan to be Speaker of the House, and I'm pleased to hear that Mary has finally made a public statement on that.
Thank you.
I didn't use up all my time, but I think that the idea of focusing on Speaker Madigan, it really deflects the bigger picture of ethical reform throughout the legislature. We need to really make major changes. And it's not just about one vote or one person. It's a very big picture.
Thank you. So in regards to that, what are your plans for ethics reforms in Springfield, Candidate Boss?
Yeah, there's quite a bit to do and to tackle in that. And, of course, the first step is removing Madigan from his speakership. In November 2019, the GOP put forth ethics legislation, and there was only one Democrat who jumped on board with that. So I'm pleased to see that the Democrats are finally getting on board with wanting to do some ethics reform in our state. Redistricting reform is number one in that, to get the politics and parties out of redistricting so that we have fairly drawn maps, so that we have fair representation. We need to prohibit lawmakers from lobbying at other governments. We need to close the circle of lawmakers retiring or leaving and coming back as lobbyists. We need to expand the statements of economic interest to expose these conflicts of interest. And we need to, of course, increase the fines and penalties and remove pensions from those legislators who are found guilty.
Thank you, Candidate Edly-Allen.
Yeah, I would like to, again, put a focus on the fact that we have people in the legislature and people just in humanity who do not do the right thing. There's a difference between, to me, between something being illegal and unethical. And I think that this is where the boundaries lie, that just because something isn't illegal, it doesn't mean it's unethical. Passing all kinds of laws are not going to make people behave the way that they should. Unfortunately, as we have seen, behaviors that we have seen in the past are happening and they are illegal. So not only have I been talking about this, I'm actually doing something. I'm with a group of female legislators that get together once a week, and we are working on 9 points of ethics reforms that we will propose during the veto session. It's a work in progress. We have a lot of stakeholders at the table discussing this, and it's a very, very serious issue, and I'm proud to be with a group of freshman legislators working towards that end.
Thank you. Our next question is in regards to immigration. Would you support protecting immigrant families from federal immigration enforcement by empowering schools, medical facilities, and courthouses to turn away from ICE agents and to restrict police cooperation with ICE? Why or why not?
You know, I was a bilingual teacher, so all of my students were immigrants, and it propelled me also to get into the election when I felt that my own families felt very threatened and unsafe. I was actually speaking to family members and saying, I am a safe person. If you don't feel safe, please come talk to me. And I thought, what kind of a country have we become when we have citizens and other immigrants that don't feel safe in their communities? This is more of a federal level, and it's some of the decisions are made at the local level, but I believe that we are all human beings and we all should be treated that way. We have certain guides that keep us as human beings, and I think that all humans deserve to be protected.
Thank you, Candidate Boss.
Yeah, immigration reform is something that 100% needs to happen at the federal level. There's the challenge of, the local implementations of some of those federal rulings. We are a nation of law and orders, and we do need to uphold those laws. However, standard, normal, society improving, non-violent law-breaking offenders shouldn't have to worry about ICE agents coming into their schools. I believe that our law enforcement agencies need to work together. They need to share data. They need to do what's best for the communities and treat people humanely, treat people civilly, and uphold the law and orders that we do have.
Thank you. Our next question is in regards to housing. What should be done to reduce the number of evictions and foreclosures during the COVID-19 pandemic? Candidate Boss.
Yeah, that's a challenge, that I know a number of people are facing, and I also know a number of property owners are facing right now as well too. When they have investment properties, they have rental properties, they have their businesses, is the actual property with entities inside, and they can't go without their normal income, as well as the challenge of those entities, whether it be people or businesses, with their inability to pay. We need to find common sense solutions. We need to provide some temporary relief and support for those who need it, and find opportunities to move forward in the midst of COVID. One of the things that the governor did was treated small businesses and big box stores unequally, where Walmart could be open selling anything and everything, but my local florist couldn't be open selling flowers. We need to cut that stuff away. We need to move forward and get our businesses back up and running and get the economy back up and running here in Illinois.
Thank you, Candidate Edly-Allen.
This area is actually very close to my heart. I was part of a group that was created post-COVID just to address this situation. A group of us freshman legislators went to the speaker and asked for a task force that actually came up with a request for rental assistance relief and for homeowner relief for the landlords. We did go through the first round because we saw how our homeless population that I've also been working closely with was starting to rise, and we wanted to do the preemptive, get in front of people who are in their homes, keep them in their homes and safe. So I was so proud to be part of this group of legislators for the first time ever to have a task force created around exactly this issue, keeping homeowners in their homes, renters in their homes, rental assistance, and assistance for the landlords. We need more funding for this. We've requested several more million, and my time is up.
Thank you.
I'm passionate about this issue.
Our next question is in regards to government consolidation. Considering the financial position Illinois residents will have in the upcoming year and potentially into the future, which taxing bodies would you consider for consolidation or elimination?
Consolidation is one of the key buzzwords right now, and between our taxing bodies and between our townships, Something that has actually worked and has been implemented is consolidation of school districts. We have over 700 school districts in our state. I have one school district that has just one school. It's a K-8 building, and then another that's a unit with its K-12. But in Mundelein, they did a very creative model that I would like to see repeated throughout the state, where their elementary school district and their high school district combined services and have one shared superintendent and shared administrative costs. I thought that was very innovative, and I would like to see us do more consolidating like that throughout the state.
Thank you. Candidate Boss?
I think there's plenty of opportunities for consolidation across this state, and it would be another pivotal moment and key to moving the state forward. School district administration consolidation is a huge burden on taxpayers, and that could lead to great relief. As an Ely Township trustee, we have on the ballot coming up this November the consolidation of the Ely Township Highway Department into Ely Township. The Highway Department is its own taxing body. The individual, as the highway commissioner, can dictate the tax levy, dictate his own budget, dictate, if he sticks budget, if he doesn't stick to budget, with no oversight from the board. And so I don't need not only talk about it, we actually are doing something about this. And I think there's plenty of other opportunities across the state, across the county, and even within our own communities that we can consolidate some of these expenses to put relief into the taxpayers, and especially the property taxpayers.
Thank you. Our next question sent in as a clarification from a previous one regarding women's rights. The proposed replacements for Justice Ginsburg will increase the chance that the Supreme Court will redistrict reproductive rights that will mainly affect women. Do you support equal rights for everyone? Candidate Edly-Allen.
Oh, I think.
No, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. I spoke last. The Supreme Court issue is a federal issue. The Senate will be, and the president will be making that decision. I won't have any weigh in or say on that, but I do support equal rights. I believe the Declaration of Independence in our Constitution with "We the people" includes everybody.
Thank you. Candidate Edly-Allen.
I'm not sure what the clarification that needs to be made. I think I've been very outspoken and forthright about my position that women get to, we trust women to make their own healthcare choices here in Illinois. And this is one of the reasons why I ran to protect us, our environment, and protect women's right at the state level, knowing that at the federal level, we are completely under siege in all areas. So I don't have much confidence right now in the federal government. And I'm just, so that this is, but women can sleep well knowing that they and their healthcare are protected here in Illinois.
Thank you. Our next question is in regards to school curriculums. What is your position on including the 1619 project in school curriculum?
I go next. I'm not as familiar with the 1619 curriculum, but I do believe that we need to have different voices to be heard. As an educator, I was part of a diversity committee, was one of the first in Lake County that took a look at different things that we could do as a district in order to make our community more inclusive and more diverse. Again, always trying to give voice. My students were immigrants and wanting to have them and their families be part of our community. Simple things from changing the types of books you have in your classroom to reflect all family structures to different heroes. We need to have our literature and our curriculum reflect today, not 100 years ago when women didn't even have the right to vote, and it even took longer for people of color to have the right to vote. We have had an imbalance for a very long time, and we need to be intentional in bringing this to level the playing field as far as curriculum is concerned.
Thank you. Candidate Boss.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the ins and outs of the 1619 project, but believe that, we need to be teaching true history. We need to be teaching true facts about where we came from, the good and the bad, the ugly and the hopeful. In the midst of that, we need to also be mindful and wary, though, of putting more unfunded mandates into our schools and into our school districts. When we start changing lots of curriculum or start adding, you've got to do this, you've got to do that with no funding to go to it, that leads to increased taxation. I have an adoptive daughter, so when we look at some of these family projects that they have to do in school with charting out their genealogies or even their what's your background, and when it doesn't fully, on the biological side line up with where her family is. I'm open and think we need to be teaching more inclusivity, more opportunities for kids, for families, for the community to share their stories of how they came, here, and their impact here in our communities.
Thank you. Our next question is again in regards to LGBT issues. What is your position on marriage equality as it pertains to the LGBTQ community? Candidate Boss?
Yeah, I think the government needs to get out of marriage. I don't think marriage is a government institution. I think when you look historically, government or marriage is a religious institution, and whatever those religious institutions decide that marriage can and cannot be, then that's up to the religious institutions to do that. I think that there are other things that the government can do, providing the legal bindings needed for the tax relief, for inheritance, for whatever, for last of kin rights, whatever those may be, that don't have to involve marriage.
Thank you. Candidate Edly-Allen? Oh, you're muted.
I'm sorry. Can you just repeat the question? Because I feel like we're doing going back and forth to LGBTQ, and I'm not sure if Candidate Boss has actually answered the question that he does support equal marriage. We all can say we support equal rights, but can you repeat the question again?
The question is, what is your position on marriage equality as it pertains to the LGBTQ community? What is your answer?
Yes, I support marriage between all people. So I support that. That's what I thought the question was, and I didn't think that was what was answered. Okay.
Thank you. So our next question is in regards to work in Springfield. How do you propose to work across the aisle in Springfield? Candidate Edly-Allen?
Well, actually, I don't propose to work across the aisle. I have worked across the aisle. My very first bill was a very small bill that codified school language, and I actually went to every Republican representative and asked them for their support. My bills passed with 100% support. I didn't need it, but I wanted to be able to come back to my district and say, I walk the walk. It's really easy to talk a talk, but to actually do the actual work is another thing. Another example of how I've worked together is with my Lake Zurich mayor, who reached out to me during COVID, had an issue with boating regulations, and I drafted a letter. I called up Senator McConkey, asked him if he wanted to sign on. He did, and I pushed that letter up to the governor's office, and within 2 days, the boating regulations were loosened. I believe that we all need to work together for the common good, and I believe people are hungry for that. So not only do I propose it, I live it and I do it.
Thank you. Candidate Boss?
Yeah, we need to come together. We need to work together. My background in nonprofit, my background in being a pastor, work with vast different opinions and backgrounds and people from both sides and multiple aspects of political parties and affiliations to be able to move whatever work we were doing forward, working with our safe house that we have with these girls. We work with legislators on both sides of the aisle to get things done and needed on that. As an Edly Township trustee, when we first ran, I ran on a slate that had both Republicans and Democrats. So every time we're gathering, we're meeting, we're finding solutions that we can work together. Again, this is not about a party. This is not about representing a party. This is about representing a community. This is about representing the people, the families, and the businesses that are here in this, in the 51st district, and I'll do whatever it takes to put them first.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question before we get to closing statements. So does negative campaigning have a place in your run for office? Why or why not? Candidate Boss?
I think what people need to understand and realize is that there's outside entities that are involved in these campaigns. I tell people, unless it says paid for by friends of Chris Boss on it, it did not come from me directly. There's things that have come out that come in the mail that I don't see them until somebody sends me a picture of it. I did not, that I didn't know that came out. I didn't know what was said, and I didn't know how it was said, and I had no say in that process. And so I wish there was not as much negative campaigning. I wish we could focus on the issues and not doing these circle logic of connections of saying, well, this candidate, because he's like this person, has this friend, is now supports everything that person does or did. It's a travesty. I think people are sick of it, and we need to find ways to get around that, to do some reforms and influence these outside parties that are have a bigger hand in connecting with voters and pushing out these false ads.
Thank you. Candidate Edly-Allen?
Can you repeat the question again, please?
Yes, of course. Does negative campaigning have have a place in your run for office? Why or why not?
Negative campaigning depends on how you're framing that, because if you're just putting out information that is truthful about someone, perhaps they don't support a woman's right to their own health care, or they don't support common sense gun legislation, those are just truthful. So some can receive that as negative. However, that's just a position that someone has. And the idea that, not connecting with different issues, we have our parties and what our platforms are, and it couldn't be more diverse today and what the different parties represent.
Thank you. And I thank you both for answering all of these questions that have been sent in by community members. So at this point, we'll move into our closing statements. Candidate Boss, you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, thank you, Maddie. Thank you thank you to the League of Women Voters. Thank you, community, for the engaging questions, and thank you, Representative Mayor Edly-Allen, for the opportunity to have this discussion with you. This election, this November, comes down to who do you trust? Springfield is pushing forth massive tax increases. That's going to have a huge impact on our communities and our families and our local businesses. This system of corruption that has gone on rampant for years and years down in Springfield needs to be adjusted and needs to be changed, needs to be dealt with. And there are those who believe in that system, those who benefit from that system, and those who are going to stand up and say, no more, enough is enough, and we've had it. There's going to be those who are going to say it's time to put our communities first. And I trust you. I trust our families. I trust our local businesses. I trust our communities. Springfield does not need any more of our money. Springfield does not need any more power. Springfield needs to be reined in. Springfield needs to be controlled. Springfield needs to be stood up to and fought against in our communities, our families, and our businesses, and local issues need to be put first. And that's why I want to go down there. That's what I plan to do. That's what I've done here in Ela Township, and that's what I will continue to do for the people of the 51st District.
Thank you. Candidate Edly-Allen?
All I can say is thank you so much to the League of Women Voters, and thank you to Catherine and Madeline for facilitating this. It's always inspiring to see young people involved in politics. That's been one of my mantras as an educator, to get people more involved, and it's very similar to the participation is critical to our democracy. I said in the beginning, democracy is not a spectator sport. It is a verb. It is up to us. When we say Springfield, Springfield is us. Springfield is the voters. It's what is reflected in how we participate and how we dictate. Our voice is our vote, and it needs to be heard on November 3rd. When we only have 48% of our electorate that are voting, we get what we get. So I put the onus also on the voters to do their part in getting out and voting and having representation that they believe in. I believe that I have not only talked the talk, I've walked the walk. I have done all of these things in being a bipartisan, trustworthy, ethical, fair, honest legislator that is approachable, accessible. I've had over 30 virtual coffees, both virtually and in person, because I think government should be available, accessible, and real to people. Part of what I miss most is going back into the classrooms and speaking to the students and getting them involved. We need more participation, and these kinds of forums are critical to the lifeblood of our democracy. So I thank you all for the preparation that you had to do to put this on. And I look forward to meeting again sometime. Thanks so much.
Thank you, and thank you both, candidate Edly-Allen and candidate Boss, for joining us today. This will conclude our candidate forum, so thank you all for tuning in, and I hope you all have a nice day.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.